Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you guys classic elongated fashion figure. You're going to need tracing paper, about an 18-inch clear graph ruler, skinny mechanical pencils, some skinny erasers, a correcting pen. This is a 0.5 tip red gel pen. Your visual reference, of course. So if you're not familiar with my four-step process to make croquis, I highly recommend that you go and review the videos. And I'm going to post the links somewhere in the box, somewhere on this screen, somewhere. Okay? Or you can go to my channel homepage. If you already know the process, you're familiar with the process, or you are advanced enough in drawing and croquis work that you think you can follow along, be my guest. But at some point, if you get confused, just go back to the videos. We're going to take the same four-step process and apply it to just longer figures. So step 1, tracing the gesture. Step 2, building the body. 3, adding anatomy. And 4, photoshopping with pencil. I have my visual reference. I have put my plumb line down. So from her suprasternal notch to the center of her weight leg, or like in this case, if her weight is evenly distributed between both feet, then in the center of her ankles. Because she's a 10 head figure, we need to measure her head, not along the plumb line, but along the center of her face. If you can't tell where the top of the model's head is because there's so much hair going on up on top, just keep in mind that your eye line is at the center of your head. Not the center of your face, but the center of your head. So just measure from the bottom of your head to your eye line and multiply that by 2. This is a 1 1/8 inch head. I'm going to take my tracing paper and I'm going to mark 10 heads, each 1 1/8 inch. And then number them. I know it seems like a small thing, but you would be amazed at how many errors happen because the student decided not to number their heads, and I get weird croquis with super long thighs and really short calves. So flip her over, because when you're drawing and correcting and doing a bunch of stuff and erasing, you want to keep your plumb line and your numbers. So that's on the back now. And we're gonna line up the plumb lines, and we're gonna just scooch her down, scooch the tracing paper up and down along the plumb line to elongate this pose. And this is another reason why the plumb line is important. And as you're working, if you see 2 plumb lines, you're ruining the pose. You're not capturing the pose. You're moving thighs around in the wrong place. Always keep your plumb lines lined up. Here we go. So the 1 mark should be at the bottom of her chin. And we're going to trace her head, not just her face, but her head. And then next we're going to do her breasts. And this 2 mark should be at the top of her breast where the top of a strapless dress would sit. So again, scooch, keep your plumb lines matched up. That's where her strapless dress would sit, right? And that's where your 2 is. And so we're going to mark her breasts here. And then you mark your shoulders. You mark your shoulders after your bust, because that makes you to have perky breasts and a long neck. If you do head, neck, shoulders, and then scooch down for the breasts, it's going to give you a short neck and saggy boobs. Shoulder balls, double-headed Mickey Mouse. And then we're gonna scooch some more for her waist. So her waist is at 3, and so are your elbows. Your elbows sit really close to your waist. So elbows here. And remember to make those markers as wide as the limbs. There's her rib cage in here. And then crotch is at 4 1/4, not 1/4 inches, but 25% of the head. So here's 4, here's 5, here's about half of that. Oh, there we go. Keep your plumb lines matched up, and we're gonna put her pelvic box in here. Her wrists are right at crotch level, so we're gonna put that in there. Her hands. And then the center of your knees are going to be at 6. And then your ankles are going to be at 9. And you're like, wow, her calves are so long now. And you would be right about now. There are a couple of reasons why we make the calves so long. Number 1, it creates a more graceful figure, long and leggy. Number 2, minimum design distortion. So just imagine as you're designing, a lot of people design a lot of different kinds of collars and tailoring around the shoulders and different kinds of sleeves. And we design a lot in the trunk space of a body. And when you're designing pants and skirts, well, with pants, you design a lot around the hip area, right? Closures and different kinds of waistbands and belt loops and yokes and pockets, right? And then maybe at the hem, you have some cuffs or some interesting top stitching, but you don't really design a whole lot in the calf area. It works out perfectly that the bodies look more graceful and there's minimum design distortion. And then the bottom of your feet are going to be at the 10 mark. And yes, you are making your feet bigger because if you think about it, it's proportionately correct. Most people, the taller you get, the bigger your feet are. Here is the completed gesture. This is a complete croquis for a 9-head figure. The only difference between this one and this one is that once I got to her knees, I made her ankles at the 8-head mark, not the 9-head mark. So yes, I was elongating her calves as well as the rest of her, but I didn't elongate the calves as much as your classic fashion figure. I don't stick to one type of figure. I manipulate croquis to whatever design project that I'm working on. When would I use a 9-head versus a 10-head? 9-head, I highly recommend for costume design majors because costume designers are designing for actors, and actors, most of them are average height. You know, there are a lot of actresses like Charlize Theron who are very, very tall, but for the most part, costume designers are costuming people of average height. Whereas fashion design, and the runway and everything, models are, you know, on average 5'9", 5'10", whereas your average woman is about 5'5". So while fashion likes a more idealized proportion, a fantastical proportion, costume design likes idealized, but more within the realm of reality. Also depends on the age group. Like, I don't want an elegant figure for juniors. Like, especially if I'm doing junior swimwear, where the focus is more on the torso, the design is here, and it takes up more of the space. So if I'm doing a younger junior look, bathing suits, that kind of thing, I'll use a 9-head. And then for evening wear, I might even do an 11 head. Once you have your elongated gesture, the other steps are exactly the same. And we build the body using the girth markers that we used before. And then fold her over again. And we do step 3, which is adding anatomy. And this is all reviewed. You can go watch the videos again. But I'm going to show you elongated legs because that is mainly the part that's elongated the most and trips students up the most. So here's crotch level. We're going to give her a little bit of a thigh gap. And we know how wide her knees are. We know how wide her ankles are. Here's her hip. So as before, waist, high hip, and then low hip is crotch where it's the widest. So we're going to curve around that, and then we're going to tuck back in. And then the outside of the knee is straight. High curve on the outside of the calf. So when we were doing calves before, we had the high curve on the outside. And now that we're elongating them, you're elongating the entire curve. You're not going to curve and then just elongate the bottom part. You're going to elongate the entire curve. Like so. And then the inside, right, curving in, divoting about 2/3 of the way down, and then wrapping, and the inside of the knee is round. Low curve on the inside, divot, high ankle bone, and then your foot, and your kneecap and tibial tuberosity. So there's your elongated leg. And then of course your step 4. Let's say you want a super juicy hips and thighs leg. We're gonna add some hip, add a little bit in here too. The knee, you're not gonna add so much. Here, just a little bit more there. And here you have your juicy step 4 leg. Now let's do an asymmetrical figure. We have your visual reference, plumb line, from your suprasternal notch to the center of your weight ankle. We have on the reverse side of the tracing paper, the plumb line. I measured the head, it's 1/8 inch, so mark the 10 heads. The 1 mark goes right under her chin. Keep those plumb lines matched up. Trace the head, not just the face. Here's her ear, center front. Now, when you have a twisted rib cage where her breasts are at an angle, you can just draw that strapless dress right on top, and that's where that 2 mark will go. This one goes here, this one goes here, double-headed Mickey Mouse, angle of the shoulders, angle of her neck, and the beginning of her center front. Waist is at 3, which is, you know, she's kind of just there, so I'm going to leave her there. And her elbows. And then crotches 4 1/4. So here, that's about half, that's about 1/4. So just scooching a little bit, keep your plumb lines matched up. We're gonna draw her pelvic box again. Here we go. There's her center front. There's the front of her pelvic box. That's the side. Let's see a little bit of the top. If you are confused, go back to the first video. We have her wrists. And then her knees are at 6. And when I say that on a figure where all the weight is on one leg, you're going to use your weight leg for that measurement. So your knee, 6 is going to be at the knee of your weight leg. So this is the knee with the weight leg, and then I'm going to mark the knee of the other leg. And then again, ankle of your weight leg will be at 9. Here's your other ankle. And then again, yes, your foot is going to be a bit bigger. And there is the gesture for this pose. Fold her over to build the body. And yes, I have flipped her pose over so that I can be correcting any mistakes as I go. All right, and there's my completed step 3. And I'm gonna work on step 4. I'm gonna flip her over and I'm gonna make corrections. Now, this pen is a Pilot Friction and it is an erasable pen. And I don't recommend that you use erasable pens for anything you want finished, final, forever, because they're erasable, and these pens are even more erasable than pencil. Pencil, you can see smudges and stuff, but these pens are really, really erasable. So yeah, not for bank documents or final renderings, but these are great for correcting. So I flipped her over and I'm going to make corrections. I'm going to bring her rib cage in a little bit over here. I'm going to bring her arm in just a hair, just her shoulder. I'm going to leave the rest of her arm as is. I'm going to move her head over because she seems like she's at this like really weird, awkward angle. And she kind of is in this pose, but we don't have to continue to make errors, right? Trim her neck down. And then I know her wrist is higher because her shoulders are at an angle, but this seems like a little bit too high. So I'm gonna bring her down here. Like so. Her calf looks really stiff, so I'm gonna push her out a little bit like so. Finish step 4 by adding her face, blocking in her hair, and, you know, really finessing the drawing and making everything extra beautiful. Etc., etc. Right? So 4 steps of croquis building for elongated figures. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you want to see future videos where I teach you how to draw faces and hair, and I give you more tips on how to make your figures look better, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.